classic droids of Skeleton Crew and Kenobi on Disneyplus. Today we're reviewing stories from the team who worked with the classic droids behind the scenes. So by show of hands or a cheer, if you like the show, how many of you have seen Obi-Wan Kenobi? And the Skeleton Crew. So you guys know what we're talking about. That's great. So I'm Amy Senna, I'm your moderator. I am Mike Senna's wife of 32 years. I've joined him for nearly all of our droid appearances since 2001 and play a big part in helping manage our ongoing droid operations. Although I've worked on many film sets and promotional events, stage shows, live entertainment with Mike, our R2-D2 and our BB-8, I did not work on either Obi-Wan Kenobi or Skeleton Crew, as all of our panelists have at least one or the other of those shows. So I'd like to go down the line and ask each person to introduce themselves and give a brief description of their role in the production, either Obi-Wan Kenobi or Skeleton Crew.
So hi, my name's Mike Senna. I got started in my production career, I guess, with Disneyplus, doing Kenobi. I was hired as a droid consultant, which I just brought a lot of fan droids and droids in general to the set, mainly just for the background droids. So I brought about 15 of them there and probably puppeteered about 8 of them on that show. The other show I did was Skeleton Crew, which I was then hired as a key droid tech, which I was head of a department there. And again, we did the classic droids, about 13 of the droids, and I was also a puppeteer on Skeleton Crew, and I did the droids, plus I was able to puppeteer some aliens as well. So that was good fun. But that was my role on the two series. Victor?
Hey, I'm Victor Franco. I was the droid assistant on Skeleton Crew, whatever that is. What I did was assisted Mike. So we had the non-humanoid droids. So like SM-33 was not in our wheelhouse, but we did, like Mike said, the classic droids. So besides, I operated droids on 3 of the episodes of Skeleton Crew, but besides that, I helped with the logistics. Like every droid that was shot, we had to have it scanned by visual effects. We had to have it photographed by the franchise department for any potential merchandising or product needs or anything else they might need. Just keeping a shooting schedule, knowing what droid had to be on set, what day, things like that.
Hi everyone, my name is William Miyamoto. For Skeleton Crew, I was a droid operator and also a production assistant. I assisted Mike with that droid over there when it was on the X-Wing, and I also supplied this droid for Kenobi.
Hi everybody, my name is Rob Wight. I worked on Skeleton Crew as a puppeteer with all these wonderful people.
I guess that's my turn now.
Yep.
All right, my name is Gordon Tarpley. I worked on Skeleton Crew. I played 3.5 characters, including this droid here, which I was brought on by Mike Senna. I also was part of the team that built the RX droid for Book of Boba Fett with Mike McMaster, Dave Ferreira, Mike's Kyle McMaster, and Chris Stroud. And that droid ended up in Skeleton Crew. So the episodes that I wasn't on, our little buddy was, which I was pretty happy about. And in Kenobi, I didn't work on the show directly, but I did make some of the domes. And Senna, is that one of the ones that I did here? The one your graffiti droid? Is that one of ours?
Yes.
So I didn't paint them, but I made some of those domes for various shows as well. So that was my little hand on that show.
This was a Kenobi droid. It was on episode 2, I believe, when Obi-Wan and the little Leia were running through the city that looked like kind of Tokyo. He was called a featured background because he was more featured than the background.
All right, we're trying different things. All right, so you all have come from different backgrounds. went to college, some didn't, but somehow you all ended up coming together to work on this production. So I'd like to hear from all these different pathways, what got you here? What were the most important skills or traits that you had developed prior to this that qualified you for this job? No, we can start with you because we have slides in our.
What was the question?
What were the skills? Yeah, husbands never listen to their wives, right? What were the most important skills and traits you developed over time that qualified you for this job?
Well, first of all, it's paying attention. And then, secondly, is I've been a programmer for about 30 years of my career, so I didn't start in actual Star Wars stuff. But when I did, and actually through my life, I stayed, everything that I did, even my hobbies, my interests, whatever my passions were at the time, I always was professional in that. Always tried to gain as much knowledge as I could, and also share that knowledge with my fellow people that were within the field that I was studying. Also, I had some notes here. There was a lot of other things that we would do, and I think that you'll see throughout this, through the other people as well. Traits like professionalism, perseverance, follow through, pursuit of knowledge, social, and also paying attention to social media and networking. Social media was very important to me. I only posted the stuff that was related to what I was doing or the projects that I was working on. I never posted memes or political views. That actually really helped out in probably a story I'll get into later on in the talk. But people actually noticed that, and I didn't know that Imagineering was actually following me for a couple of years. And that's how I got involved in a lot of things that I'm now doing for Disney. So be careful with your social media.
Sure. In my case, I guess what kind of qualified me was a few things. One was we're all members of the R2 Builders Club going back, decades now. And so I built my first R2, started in 2005, finished in 2007, and since then I've done over 400 events. And in that time, I have learned how to behave when you're on a set, because I've done a few shoots, how to be responsible, how to show up on time, how to interact with people properly. So I think those things, because a lot of people do have droids, but sometimes they're a little goofy with them, or irresponsible, or do silly things they shouldn't do. So I think if you show that you know what you're doing, it helps increase your odds of actually getting more professionally in the industry.
And it could be simple things like just showing up when you say you're going to show up. And even if it's within the peers that you have, your friends, because your friends eventually may get an opportunity to do something. And it's like you all have people where you know that this is the friend you would invite to do professional things, but this is the friend that you will not. And what are the traits of that person that you would want him to have? And a lot of it's that, it's if you show up, if you say you're going to show up to a party or social gathering, no matter how small it is, show up. You want to be the person that go, yeah, that guy said he was going to show up, so he's going to be here. That type of thing.
For me, it was all dumb luck. When you're younger, they ask you, what are you passionate about? What do you want to do? And I'm thinking, I love Star Wars, I like playing with toys, and I like radio-controlled models. Where's that going to get me? But I had a passion for all that stuff, and that led me to managing a hobby store that sold radio-controlled models. I got a lot of experience with radio-controlled models. I met people through the 501st that got me into costuming and prop making. Then the R2 Builders, I built my own droids. I wanted to be in Star Wars, so I started acting. And just through connections, knowing people, networking, it led me to Skeleton Crew.
So we should mention you were in Star Wars in Book of Boba Fett. Yeah, he's on screen.
With his
long, beautiful hair. Gangster.
Is it head and shoulders?
This is Williamson. What is this?
I don't
So
know.
I'm the mobster sitting down next to Bando.
Because it's kind of seems persnickety. Oh, wait. It's
Not
moved
showing
a
up
little
on
bit,
that.
but it's-
On the projector, it's not doing so good.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you have to take his word for
There's
it.
still-
I watched the book of Boba Fett.
He has trading cards that he'll sign.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Rob White. I started my journey when I was 19. I ran away with a circus. I basically started out in Michigan. I say I ran away with the circus because I moved to Orlando, Florida. Yes. And through that time, I auditioned a ton. My first big role was during Star Wars Weekends. I played Boba Fett. And throughout that, I auditioned for Lion King, Little Mermaid. I did lots of shows in Orlando. Moved on to Universal Studios. As you can see, I've got a really funny face in green over there. And caught the eye of some people who had some robots. If anybody ever remembers Push a Talking Trash Can, that was my favorite little buddy for a really long time. Circling back over to Star Wars Weekends events that connected to R2 and R2MK. You can see that up in the photo there too. And then I wanted to become an actor. Also, the time I was DJing as well. And the time I was trying to be an actor, you gotta go through classes, etc. And bumble your way through those types of things. Went to Atlanta, booked a couple shows there, didn't really like Atlanta. Came out to California, oh, there's a beach here, oh, awesome. Came out here, did that. Booked a film called Cannibal Comedian, just came out this last week. It's right behind Terrifier 2 and Screenbox. Anyways, ended up doing that. COVID hit, everything kind of fell apart. Before that, I met these guys at R2 LA, which is brought to you by the R2 Builders Club through Mike and Amy, and they opened their home to me. And, not knowing all these guys in the same group as they've known each other for a long period of time, it felt at home. It was like a home away from home from a lot of other people that I had. So I found a nice community with these guys. COVID hit, didn't have a whole lot to do. I met my girlfriend over there. She's in the far left. I worked on a morning show for about 9 months. I was with the COVID safety team along with the locations team, so worked really close with Jennifer Aniston, which was awesome. And then from there, I got a phone call from Mike during COVID. It was around October 2022, and he goes, "Hey dude, you want to work on a Star Wars show?" Yes, Mike Senna, I do. And that's how I got.
Hi, I'm back. All right, so I guess for me, I kind of came from both angles. I'm a builder, so I like to make lots of stuff. So I build costumes and props and all these kinds of things. And I also have performance side. I did drama classes all through high school and so forth. I played in bands for years, so I'm used to being in front of people. And I got this personality like this. And it kind of converged in that point because I built a lot of replica Star Wars things that people wanted a guy that could do replica Star Wars stuff, and then it ended up becoming professional Star Wars stuff. And actually, I met Rob here in Florida, because I used to live in Florida, in Orlando. He would drive R2, and I would be C-3PO sometimes for stuff.
Which was a cool way to meet a really good friend of yours.
Yeah, exactly. So those things kind of add up, and then over the, you get to work on these different shows. I worked on a show called Jedi Temple Challenge up the top right with Ahmed Best, and I was the co-host droid on that show. And so I spent a lot of time in like weird robot costumes and a lot of time in creature suits. So I'm comfortable being uncomfortable, I guess, which will lend itself well. So I kind of had the same call. Senna here reached out to me and said, "Hey, you want to do a droid for Skeleton Crew?" And I was like, "Yes, absolutely." And right around the same time, I, to a completely different way, got cast to be a couple of pirates in an Authorian. I think the Authorian you only see maybe one shot, but on 5 episodes, I play that pirate down the bottom right with the dog face and the helmet.
Dog face.
Yeah, dog face helmet guy. And And yeah, so yeah, just basically it comes from, everybody mentioned social media, persistence, just trying to just keep moving forward. I didn't have this goal necessarily in mind, but it's always out there. And if you're always moving toward it, it's good. And I mentioned earlier, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And so it's like, you know, being lucky, but also having the skills that can back it up if the time arises.
I love that saying that you just said, the harder you work, the luckier you get, because it's so fun. It's, a lot of people will look at you and go, well, you're really lucky in what you've done. Your career's been growing really well. And it's like, yeah, it's a lot of luck. But yeah, it's a lot of that integrity. And also, it's very, very hard work. And each of these guys up here were selected or are asked to do things because I knew they would follow through. I knew if they told me they were going to do something, they were going to do it with the minimum of supervision or looking after. You don't want that. If you assemble a team, you want them to be able to take care of issues and problems without you
Having to punish them.
Yeah. So after being punished once, they really came into line. But yeah, they were all had those qualities. So that's how you really get somewhere. I think anywhere. It doesn't even have to be for a set or anything like that. It's all those qualities that you need to be successful in whatever you're doing.
Yeah, we say luck is what happens when planning meets opportunity, and so when people plan well in their lives, when those opportunities come, they are ready to take them. So next question is a very general question. What was a typical day on set? I don't know who wants to jump in here first. We do have a number of little screenshots from the series that we can reference to.
I think it's kind of different for all of us, right? Because like Mike Senna was in more of like a leadership role as well as doing puppeteering stuff. You're like managing a bunch of, you know, behind the scenes kind of aspects, right?
Yeah, so the managing part of it, of course, we'll look through. So typically we'll, how far do we need to go back? Like the production meeting?
Yeah.
A long time ago,
So before an episode, they'll actually show the full episode in front of all the heads of the departments. So we have like
in animated form.
Yeah, so it's in like a 3D animated form. And so the storyboards aren't there anymore that you always see. It's an actual 3D animation of the show. So what they have, what's nice about that is they can show the shots to the different directors. If they have different directors on each show, it'll show the shot and how they want to form it. But in any event, they'll show the entire first episode, say, and each of the heads of the department will contribute if they need to contribute. Like I could say, hey, can we put a droid in that scene right here? And then they'll let me know if it's cool or not cool, or we'll put it on the burner or something like that.
They'll burn it.
So that's where it starts from. So as soon as, then you'll get the shot schedule or the shoot schedule, and you'll know what day you're gonna shoot that certain scene. So you've gotta do all your prep work before you even get to the set, of course, to make sure your part is working 100%, and you're the brick wall. If something fails, it's your skin. So
Yeah.
you stop 100, 200 people from working until you can get your stuff straight.
It's frowned
So
upon.
then
time is money.
So then we get into the part where these guys can address. Once you arrive on the set.
Well, even before then, Mike kind of knew which droids were needed, and on a couple of them, we actually wanted to practice with the droid beforehand before we got to set, so we could actually bring it to life, how it moved, you know, bring life into it. So we actually practiced even before we got on set. So when we got on set, we were prepared and ready to go.
One of the first, I guess episode number 1 we worked on, and we had a droid involved, was Rex. The tram driver, you might recall, he had bubble gum stuff on the back of his head. Which was real chewing gum. We'll get to that a little bit more gross.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. Should I?
I'll see if the video plays. We're in the dangerous.
Yeah, I don't know if the video will play properly or not.
Yeah, my videos are not cooperating on this setup, so.
Well, hopefully you all remember how it looked.
This is.
So the shot was, they showed the tram droid, and it was just a kind of a comical moment when the droid turned his head. There was a bubble gum all stuck on the back of his head. One of the kids stuck a piece of bubble gum on the back of his head before he turns. And then the camera shoots through the tram all the way to the back, and then goes to the conversation between the stars back there, the two little guys. But the tram set was just a tram that was built, and the front windshield was gone, of course. And they had a big giant boom that went all the way through the tram to the very end. So we were, do you guys want to?
Yeah, where were you? Who was, well, first of all, who was operating?
So there was actually 3 of us operating that one RX droid, and on the upper left picture, we're actually cramped, 3 of us are cramped down right below Camo.
If you can imagine it being like, you know, the least amount of space possible to get down in there.
Twister.
And Mike, myself, and William are stuck in that area to get out of the way of the camera. And at one point, the camera comes through, and Mike actually has to grab the robot to get out of the way, otherwise it's going to get hit by a 50-foot camera. And being in that area, there's all these kids in that frame. There's about 25 kids we had that day. And they all were hooting and hollering and being very loud. And at one point, I think they said, somebody said, "Hey, why is there glasses on that kid?" There's no glasses in Star Wars. They had to stop and say, take the glasses off the kid to get him in there. But it was neat because, like, if you watch that and you freeze frame it, there's a ton of like volcanoes, like school projects in there. I mean, they really went to town.
Yeah, they had science projects on, some of the kids were holding science projects, and we got to see them like next to us, and unfortunately you don't see them very well, but they're really funny. They had like a lava volcano like you would have for, baking soda. They had a potato battery thing, but it was a Star Wars potato, and weird things coming out of it. And there was a few science projects, and I really wish you could see them, but you can barely see one of them, I think, as the camera flies through. But yeah, that Mike was mentioning to me that the way the gum thing even came about was John Watts, just kind of.
John Watts is the director of the thing, so he came by and he saw us doing our thing. He said, "Hey, what if we put a gag in here? We'll like stick gum on the back of his head, and we'll just this kid put gum on the back." And I just played part of like the negative guy, and I was like, he looks at me and goes, "What do you think about that, Mike?" I'm like, "I don't know, man."
He's like, "I do not approve."
And of course, most of us were like, "Give me the gum, chew."
It was just really fun play.
I
So,
even brought a piece today from so we still have the gum.
yeah. But yeah, some
Real DNA gum from Skeleton.
So what you have to also realize is I'm in charge of this droid, and we didn't have gum on the set, so we didn't have like fake gum. So everybody started chewing gum, including the director. And they went to craft services and got more gum, and everyone started chewing gum, and then everybody started sticking it on my prop.
And the best part was actually looking over at Mike going,
The best part was I got to clean it all off at the end of the day. That's why Robert has one, because I gave each of you guys a Ziploc bag with gum.
Yeah, our normal production, they would throw this stuff out, but being Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
But it still had so much flavor.
I actually chewed this before I came in here.
So there's the picture of you guys with the gun. That was last week.
So it was good. I didn't have to clean it off. That's why I got
That's
it.
why you had enjoyed it.
And actually, Mike was nice enough to give me another piece of gum from the production, because actually it was nice enough to, ended up giving one to John Watts at the premiere where we ended up going to. Walked up to him and I said, "Hey, you know, we have this piece of gum," and he's like, "Can I have that?" And I thought to myself, this is my piece of gum. Oh, I need more. Yes, John Watts, you can have this.
All right, so now what was a typical day off the set? A lot of questions about where do the droids come from, or how do you prep them for shooting?
So yeah, one thing I'd like to mention is, like for that Rex droid that we just talked about, that same prop got used in 2 different episodes. There's a dead version of it at Akron, and so sometimes we had to worry about getting things painted. So that would be an example of something off, not on a shooting day, but something that we had to deal with, like getting this thing to look like how it's supposed to look in any given episode. And we actually shot the dead Rex first, and so we had to make it look dilapidated, and then we had to get it looking all nice and with chewing gum on it, but had to get it in shape for episode 1.
This is always prep too, like anytime you have a costume or a droid, like mine's costume has to be on set, and beforehand you gotta go over the thing 50 times, because like Mike mentioned before, you can't have anything break on set, that's really bad. So it's a day of stressful, like checking every nut and bolt to make sure it's gonna work properly. I'm sure like with these things it's the same, like having.
Yeah, and you gotta, when you show up, there's sometimes things that you don't even understand that's gonna happen. So we prepped the gatekeeper droid. It's that droid that comes out of the door, kind of like Jabba the Hutt's palace thing. But it came out and it was talking to Jude Law. We took that stick and it was not working properly. It took like 3 weeks to get it to work properly. But in any event, we eventually took it down to the set and we were gonna shoot it. And we prepped it, we stood behind this big door, we put everything we needed to do, put inside the door, and we were all set to go, and the first thing they said was take everything out of the door. We're gonna put the camera through the door, shooting at Jude Law. And we didn't prepare for that, we didn't know that was gonna happen. So they put the camera in the middle of the door, and I was standing there with the stick, and I just was like, I don't even know how I'm gonna do this. And so they gave us a kind of a small ladder to stand above the camera with, go like this, and you can't hold something like this for like half the day. So for some strange reason that morning, I was thinking I needed a piece of wood. And I went to my shed before I went into the set, and I grabbed a couple 3-foot pieces of wood and I threw it in my car. But we brought it to set, and I looked at Victor and said, hey, go get those pieces of wood. So I stuck it in my hip and I held it onto this hand, so there's a big brace right here. And then I held it like this, and we shot the whole thing like that. And I got a big old nice bruise on my hip from that. But when you see that scene, just know there's pain behind it. But it's stuff like that that'll throw you for a loop. But you've got to think on your feet.
And the next scene was the Susie droid.
Oh, yeah. So that thing had to sit up in the droid repair shop, and we did get it from the prop department, but it was not meant to like sit up, so I had to start thinking about that.
So we had, that one was very heavy actually, that torso you see there in the head, that was like probably a 1/4 inch thick of fiberglass. So I had a rigging mechanism that's underneath that table, that Victor is underneath that table pulling on. It's just basically a rod stuck to the droid and drilled into the table. So the feet and the bottom part of the torso can be moved out. You can just remove those and it didn't matter. But the torso, as soon as you pull that lever, will sit that droid up.
And then the day of the shoot, Mike and I had to be in 2 different places, so we brought William in.
Do we have video for that?
The video's not working, I'm sorry.
So I'm actually operating that Susie droid when it's sitting up on set. I hid underneath the table, lying in the dirt. That was a lot of fun.
Next to Jude Law. Acting
Acting
against Jude Law.
with Jude Law. And Gordon was also in that.
That's, I got to be the droid. This is the same droid you see up there on the top right. And that scene, if you saw it, it was initially laid out a little differently, where Jude Law comes into the droid repair shop and he switches on the different droids to try to look for SN33, which at the time he doesn't know what it looks like, so he's checking. And when he came to set, he's like, oh, I just go down the line and I see all these droids in a row. He said, would it be more interesting if they were staggered? And he kind of repositioned where I would be and basically changed the way the scene was going to be. Because he was supposed to switch the droid on, and I would turn on and shut it down. He's like, what if you wake up like in the middle of a battle or something, and you just walk into me, and we rehearse this thing. And that was a special day for me. Working with Jude Law was pretty neat. He's a very talented guy, and but he rearranged the way that scene was shot, and it was a good change in my opinion. Yeah, initially it was gonna be just each droid down in a row. And yeah, William was stuck under there all day. And William and Mike basically babysat me and made sure I wasn't dying in the costume. And it was great.
Go back and watch that scene because it's funny because Gordon is still on and he's just walking into a wall.
So, and initially I brought, because it was gonna be in a row, and you know, Mike described the scene to me, this is what it's gonna be. So I brought a stand, a mannequin for my droid, because I figured once he shut down, I could just put him on a stand and he'll just be standing there. But then when Jude's like, you're gonna walk around. And then now I'm gonna be walking. So I wander off and I crash into a wall in the back. Cool, right? And then I think I'm done. I turn the camera, and then they film another scene. I have to turn around, and the scene was actually, they filmed a bit of the scene that didn't make it into the final episode, but when they filmed that, apparently they could see where I was gonna be. So they needed me in the suit, walking into the wall over and over for like hours. So I'm just bumping into the wall, and I'm technically bumping my foot. There's like a box on the floor or something that my foot would touch. So I'm not quite touching the wall.
There's
but,
a bit of that in there.
yeah, there's like, you see me walk for like a brief thing, but for like hours, I was just bumping into the wall, and I had to turn around and shot. And unfortunately, we only see it one time. So, but it was still fun. I wouldn't trade it for anything. It was a fun day.
Okay, next we're going to talk about the X-Wing droid on Kim's planet. There was a little bit of a hiccup that happened that day, I believe.
So we talk about prep and getting everything ready, and we have this droid ready to go, and the paint department comes in that morning and says, you know, I think I want to dirty that up a little bit. So the paint department took it, and we're just waiting around, Mike and I, and he brings it back, and we're getting it ready to go, and one of the lights in the eye is broken. And we're on set, they're filming, this droid is gonna be up in a little bit, and we're like, it's not working, he broke the light. So apparently, when he went to go paint it, he put it on a 5-gallon bucket,
They hit it with a hammer.
and I guess somehow he broke one of the LED lights in the eye. And so Mike frantically was getting his toolbox and finding another eye and trying to get it fixed before this droid was up on set.
There was stress.
Lots of stress. We need to get it done, we need to get it working.
Yeah, that thing is like all three of the lights tied together, so they work nicely and they're balanced. So once one goes out and you try to put a new one from a different type of system in there, it's the lights off in brightness. So I was told early on by one of the prop masters, you always want to bring a little battery and you have LEDs attached to these different color LEDs, and you have a little dimmer switch on, and you have a whole bunch of these in your toolkit. So I had a red one, a white one, a blue one, whatever. And sure enough, I pulled out the white one, I stuck it in the little socket, and we adjusted the brightness of the light to match the other three. And you know, all the troubleshooting of everything that we did, the last time I adjusted the brightness, I turned to William, I said, how does this look? And he goes, looks good, it matches. And they go, okay, cut, let's move on to the next scene. And I was like, holy moly. So then we lifted it up and put it into the X-Wing, but we were right there, seconds to the mark to finish that one. It was crazy.
Yep.
Okay, next we're at the Lanupa landing platform with the Wise Elders entrance.
Yeah, I love those guys. So I was operating the droid that you can kind of see on the right side of the screen. They shot it with a stunt team first coming, so the kids are supposed to be, like John says, may I present the most wise elders, and they don't come down the ramp, instead they come down a cargo lift. So they had the stunt team do it the first time, and then when it was really low, they shot the scene with the kids. And so I just had to, make sure that I timed it right when they did the two different versions of the shot, so that the droid was roughly in the right spot at the right time.
Okay, now we're on to the garbage scow driver droid. A term I just learned this week.
So the garbage scow was that droid was pretty much a scratch build. We got something that was from the art department that said this is kind of what we wanted it to look like. So we built that one up for the series. One of the few that we actually built. We weren't supposed to build anything for it, but due to the time constraints and our expertise, we were the best people to pick. So we did build that one for that scene.
Okay, so some of the favorite experiences. I know this slide, Mike, is your graffiti droid.
Well, so this is graffiti droid up in the front here. It wasn't painted like that originally. It was a greenish droid. But Deborah Chow, the director, wanted something to fill the scenes like in the Tokyo type of city with neon lights. And so they came up with this paint scheme, and she painted the droid. So it ended up being a favorite of the little Princess Leia kid on the set, which, since I knew my droids and I knew how to work stuff, the previous droids didn't have any sound available to them because we intentionally shut them down for the shooting, and they were brought in from other fans. So I knew this was my droid. I knew I could shut off the sound and turn it on when I wanted. So I was going to make the little Leia fall in love with this droid for that on that day. So she was always excited about seeing the droids and would run up to them and you know, talk to them, but they would never respond. So this one came up on set, sat down there. She saw it, ran up to it. She started talking to it, and it started responding to her. So she got very excited about it. So by the end of the day, she fell in love with it. But during the entire time, they would yell cut. She would run from her position, go back to her one, but before she went back to her one, she would run up to the droid, she would give it a hug, and she would give it a kiss, and then she would go back to her one. And just watching it was sort of breaking my heart every time I saw it. It was so cute. She did it the entire day, so it must have been over 50 times or so that she was running back and forth and doing this. And so I had the remote behind my back like a good man, showing her that it was not a real droid. And turned out to be a memory for a lot of the crew because I didn't realize it, but they were watching my hand behind my back. And later on, she came to actually an event at my house, and she brought her little droid to the house and was showing how she can operate it to the other kids. And she was standing there with her remote behind her. It was cute.
Okay, next we have William's story about his mouse droid, how it got to be so dirty. He won't let us clean it, I don't know why.
So Mike was working on Kenobi and asked if anyone had a mouse droid available, and of course I did. So I said, yeah, take mine, use it. And then didn't think about it, and then I get a call a little while later, and it's Mike, and he goes, hey, can they set your droid on fire? Yes! So,
Yeah, and so on the other side of that, they came up to me and they said, the director and the prop master, and they said, hey, do you think this guy would let us light his droid on fire? And I looked at him and I said, yes. And they said, are you sure? I think you should call him. I said, no, just light it on fire. And they said, it might get damaged. And I said, light it on fire. If it gets damaged, it's good. And I said, just don't clean it up. And they said, no, you sure? You need to call him. So I put him on speaker and I called him and said what he said. Hey, and he goes, heck yeah.
Yes. Because I figured, you know, if they were actually going to do that, they'd probably get a good shot, they'd focus on it, and even if it got destroyed, I was going to get it back, and it's going to be a screen-used prop, so it'd give it more credibility if they actually did something with it. So it's like, yeah, light it on fire.
How many times did they do that? Like 12 of them?
Oh, they did like 11 squid loads on the top of this thing. And on one of them, they said, we need a little more fire. So there was a little dish they put on the top of a steel dish. And they would put a little bit of fire gel inside of the dish. And so I saw him put how much he put in there each time. And so they said, we need a little more fire. So he put like maybe 4 times the amount. And I'm looking at it going, no, that's too much. And they lit on a fire, there was like flame shooting all the way out the back of it. And I was watching it on the screen and I was like, I hope they leave that in. But that one shot they didn't leave in, it just went right by the camera and it was like, so, it was great.
Okay, I have one last question before we go to Q&A. So I know that these guys, the one thing that they all have in common is a love of Star Wars. And so I wanted to have them tell their real pinch me moments on set. And I know that William and Rob had some they wanted to share.
Well, it's going back to that tram droid. We're all crouched, sitting to the side of it.
I'm glad I did yoga that morning.
between takes, and I'm just looking around. And then I just slap Rob really hard in the arm, just like, and it's like, dude, we're operating a droid in Star Wars. I mean, that was just like bucket list item right there.
And that kind of goes along with what William was saying. It's like, you know, even we were on the tram at that point, and we had breaks, obviously, at some points in time. And just being able to sit on a tram with nothing going on, and you're inside a tram at Advent in Star Wars, that was really cool. And the neat part about stuff too is we were able to watch some of the other scenes as well, some of the biker scenes, etc. And that was just, you're watching Star Wars in real time. That was insane. For me, with that RX droid, again, being love of Disney, as far as I know, if anybody corrects me, that's fine. But the Captain Rex, I believe that's the only other time that droid's been in there, comparable to a driver. So that was really special for me.
And for me, like almost every day was just, I can't believe I get to do this. The first few times I was on the volume, actually every time I was on the volume, I was amazed. I would like walk right up to it, look at the little individual pixels, be amazed. Getting to operate a droid on the set was beyond a dream come true. And I think the icing on the cake was seeing my name in the credits. Like to this day, and we all got, all 5 of us got to be in the credits. I still can't believe it, because you know, I saw the movie in 1977, and I would remember the names of people like Kenny Baker, and imagine this guy that was a baker. And I'd love to meet those people, and I did get to meet Kenny Baker once. So to at all be associated with that just blows my mind.
To go off what he just said, just sitting down with everybody in the same room, I get to watch it with these 2 guys for the first time, and knowing these guys for a long period of time, it's like you get to see your name on a screen in Star Wars letters with some of your best friends is kind of what it's all about anyways. I mean, if some of you have grown up watching it since you're, like Victor said, when it originally came out, that's kind of the most pinch me moment I think I've ever had, to be honest.
Yeah, insane. And I mean, the whole time, the whole experience is completely surreal, so I feel like it sinks in for me after the fact. Like when I'm on set, I'm just like, everyone, you know, every single day, I'm like,
You're so focused.
I'm here, and well, focused, but also it's incredible. It doesn't feel real. I'm like, we're in the Matrix or something.
Yeah.
Some kind of simulation.
We took both pills.
Am I standing here? This is great. Yeah. So yeah, it's amazing. The whole thing is fun.
I think my favorite fanboy moment would be on Kenobi when I didn't realize the entire crew had the same experience because it was the first day we were shooting with stormtroopers. So we were shooting with stormtroopers on an Imperial base. So you had all the classic Star Wars stuff. You had stormtroopers, you had explosions, you had lightsabers, you had the classic glossy black tile floor, and you had these guys all walking around, and it was just crazy. And I walked onto the set, and I was like, oh my God. And so I was like, this is incredible. And everyone was going, yeah, I know, isn't this incredible? And I'm thinking, what? Like, since forever, or since the last 2 months, and you haven't seen this? And they go, no, this is the first Star Wars shot we've done. And so the whole day was electric. And remember, they were doing some things where they were putting squib loads also all along the pathways or something, and there was going to be explosions happening, and they were saying to clear the set, and the volume is like a big room like this, and it's raised except for the edges. They have maybe 2 or 3 feet that there's a drop, and so I sat in the corner, and I was putting my feet into the pit, and I was just watching, and I wasn't going to move, and they said clear the set for the pyro, and the prop master came in, and he was looking around, and he saw me sitting in the corner, and he looks at me, I look at him, and he knows I'm not gonna move. So there was a cart next to me, a prop cart. He goes, Mike, I go, yeah. He goes, hold on to this prop cart, make sure it doesn't fall in the pit. I go, sure thing. So I just sat there on the truck, and I watched the explosions and the stormtroopers flying, just for one take, and then I left the set. But That was my most pinch me fanboy moment. And the only other professional moment I had that was mind-blowing was the thing I was telling you about. For each episode, they would bring all the heads of the department, and everyone had a say in it, to be in the same room with all those minds and all the skill sets and be treated as a peer. That was like, oh my God, what am I doing? This is crazy. So, you know, that was a moment.
Okay, we need to move some questions quickly. Anyone have any questions for right here?
Was there ever a time when the art department gave you a concept for a droid and you just said no? You can't do it?
So the question was, did you ever have the art department ask for a concept and you couldn't do it and said no?
You know, we were kind of, our contribution was a lot lower than a lot of the real professionals, I'll say, on the set, like Legacy Effects, who did the biped droids and the main actor droids. They were doing a lot of the heavy lifting. So for Skeleton Crew, we had the assets that were already there, except for that scale droid that we had to build. Otherwise, we had assets that were existing and had to bring to set and make sure that they were working.
Okay, over here.
Have any of you guys, did any of you guys work on Lola, the droid, or?
Did anyone work on Lola?
Now, Lola was in Kenobi. There was a real Lola, and my friend, actually, John Bush, was part of the people that did the concept drawings for that. And we didn't work with that droid. It came directly from the prop department.
We know who did.
I teach a class on prop making with kids who love robotics. What is your favorite thing in your toolbox, physically or metaphorically?
Favorite thing in your toolbox, physically or metaphorically?
YouTube.
My thumbs.
I think essential physical tools are things, we do a lot of electronic stuff, so a multimeter for quick diagnosis, a soldering iron, a butane like soldering iron, and of course just screwdrivers, wrenches. I'm trying to think of like any oddball things I keep that come in handy. Butyl tape. That's super sticky, man. That stuff is awesome. We used it all the time on Skeleton Crew to just stick things. Like Rex's ears are stuck on his head with butyl.
So butyl is like a gum, sticky. It's like all the sticky parts of the tape in like one little blob, and then you use it to stick things together.
It's like what the credit card is stuck onto your paper with when it comes in the mail.
But I'll have to
Sticky
agree.
stuff on the back.
I'll have to agree in having the portable stuff like the butane soldering iron is like super important, and having the multimeter, of course, and then little tiny screwdrivers. Case of little tiny screwdrivers. I think those were the most valuable to me.
Okay, one last question. Right here.
First, I want to say I love Skeleton Crew. It's one of like the Star Wars that was adventurous that I just couldn't stop watching. And I told my mom, and she just watched it in one weekend as well. So very, very cool. With blue screen and real engine screens that are making movies these days, practical effects, why are they still being used? And how long do you think they're going to stick around?
There'll be questions about practical effects when you have blue screens available.
Practical effects are going to stick around forever, I think. They'll be there for the marketing, they'll be there for the PR, but actors like to hold something in their hands. And we saw it multiple times with the action scenes as they were filming. And the real game changer, though, is what you were saying about the blue screen versus the actions, the
real engine?
projected screens or whatever, which was incredibly awesome. A lot of the shots that I see in those, I could tell they were from that stagecraft type of screen, but a lot of them I would look at and go, geez, I remember doing that, but that does not look like a stagecraft video. So it's incredible that video is there and what they're doing. That's the game changer.
There's a lot of
props will be always there.
I was gonna say there's a lot of things too where with like creature effects and so forth where even having like you said, there's having the creature on a set or a droid or a prop, the actors respond to it, really well, but they may replace it digitally, but having it there physically for the actors is really important too sometimes.
Also, you can kind of tell the difference when you're watching it too. It's like, watching something with a practical comparable to a digital. We're getting the hook, never mind.
So we're going to be out in the hallway for a little bit afterwards if you have any questions, and otherwise we have a booth at the back of Hall B for all the droid builders, so you're welcome to come by and say hello.
Thank you.